2023. It's 7 o'clock and we'll get started with the Town of Littleton Board of Health meeting this evening. 7 p.m. we have the discussion on the ID decision support tool that we've been working off of. We'll discuss community illness and prevention. Matt Wason, I'm hoping you have something to present for us on the screen. Thank you. You're muted.
There it is.
Take it away.
All right. Here is the latest iteration. Welcome to 2023. Things have changed a little bit with the new year. First and foremost, gone kind of are the BQ11 and BQ1 variants that we got to know so well over the past few months. And now XBB 1.5, there was an XBB 1, and now this is XBB 1.5, as just under 72% of the cases in this area. So it is by far the vast majority. It was not surprising that it kind of grew quickly because that's just what has been seen from it. It is particularly evasive of the systems our bodies and vaccines have in place. And so the spread is quite high and not too surprising. As usual, vaccinations look to be at least still somewhat effective in protecting you against very serious illness. And so they still provide a good line of defense and are critical to staying healthy. But this one is spreading around quite rapidly. The Littleton 2-week case counts are obviously kind of ticking back up since the beginning of December. And it wouldn't surprise me if that continues to climb as people have returned from holidays and start to show symptoms of potentially things that they've caught. In terms of the health and safety section, ICU bed access is at 88%. It's kind of always hovering around 90. I'm sure Dan has, opinions on looking at this number, but it's just always there. And along with that, the CDC community level has gone from medium to high. And that is partly due to patients in the hospital and the number of beds that are occupied by COVID patients. I'll come back to that in a second. The up-to-date vaccination. So we presented this for the first time at the last meeting, and I looked a little bit more into the data. So where we're at right now is the percentage of residents that are up to date on vaccinations, and the definition of up to date or vaccinations is anybody greater than the age of 5 who has received a dose of the bivalent booster, which has been available since the fall. We are at 34.1%, which is not really where we want to be. So I question if we can kind of push to try to have another round of vaccination out to folks. It looks like the elderly group of greater than 65-year-olds are actually doing a lot better than everybody else. So they are actually kind of pulling that number up for our community. But basically a third of the folks around here are up to date. So as we go back and say, well, XBB 1.5 is spreading quickly, vaccinations help, but now folks are falling behind on staying up to date with vaccinations.
I just want to add in, we have a January 17th vaccination clinic at the Littleton High School from 3 to 6. And I'll work with Anthony and his PR firm to try and get that message out there to Littleton residents and anyone else they can reach.
I haven't checked. I assume signups are open already.
They are.
Right. Yeah. So are they full?
Not as of this afternoon.
Oh, okay. That's good. Wastewater numbers out of Boston are also still above 1,000. They've been bouncing around, kind of staying around that number for a while now. So that's another red. And then the non-COVID over here, these two things on the right side, I'll still work on getting this RSV a little bit better. The good news is that RSV hit a colossal peak and has now been dropping precipitously. So let's hope that we're through this RSV wave, but that was a big contributor to other illnesses that people were experiencing and putting people in hospitals and clinics. But influenza for the state of Massachusetts still remains very high at this time. So combine very high influenza and now our CDC community level of red, and we had previously had a recommendation that people were wearing masks. I feel like when the CDC community level moves to red for our area, that's typically where the CDC starts to say people should really be wearing masks, not pretty please wear masks. People really should be wearing masks. And so I don't know what the feeling is if we see a red on that level to say we need to potentially have a mask requirement in municipal buildings or such to try to get the message across. So I would love to hear what people think about this, but this is not my favorite dashboard to present this time.
Hi there.
We could start with Kevin Davis. Do you have a question, comment?
So awesome presentation, good data, very concerned about all the numbers. Definitely want to have a conversation about what we want to do with masking. I feel that there needs to be something more than just, hey, start wearing them. There needs to be a little bite to whatever we're going to decide. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Dan Kane, questions, comments?
As always, thanks to the data. I think the public health piece of this is much more complex than it was in the early days, even mid days of COVID, where our primary concern beyond our normal background levels of illness, it was COVID. We had very low rates of flu, we had very low rates of RSV, we had very low rates of lots of things because we didn't have the same levels of interaction that we did. Looking at numbers, I realized that our case count, the representative nature of our case count is limited at the moment because our testing models have changed. So 20 cases here means something different than it did 2 years ago or 18 months ago, but it's still a relatively small number. Certainly masking decreases flu transmission, masking decreases COVID transmission, masking decreases lots of transmission, but I guess I'm in a piece of, I'm not quite sure. We're at that same place of how we can message, how effective. Is it going to be impactful? Potentially, but at what cost? And I'm not sure. It's how much buy-in we're going to get. Because right now we can look at this and go, wow, but truthfully, it's flu season. It's bad flu season. Now, I guess I'm just trying to figure out how do we. I think education and messaging is probably going to be more valuable than stricter measures, because, as we know, stricter measures are not necessarily any more effective. It's about getting the message out in the why rather than the you have to. We've seen it. So as Matt had said, I'm happy to talk to the hospital status. The hospitals are underwater. For anybody who's seen, even some of our local hospitals have publicly announced, basically don't come to the hospital. That they are overwhelmed. Beyond some of what COVID level overwhelmed was at the moment. With very, very long waits to get into the department. Very, very long waits if you need to be admitted, over 24 hours, 48 hours to move from the emergency department to a bed upstairs. Our hospital, that 87% number, the 97% number for inpatient beds, that means at 3% capacity. I'll tell you in real life, that number is not accurate. That a hospital is never, 100% capacity is never available. Just isn't. Usually most hospitals run at staffed for between 85 and 95% capacity. So when you see a 97% capacity, you can go, wow, it's almost full. Now you're already 5% past full at 97% or more. So that's kind of where our hospitals are. And I think maybe some of that messaging of, you know what, if it saves you one case of flu in your house, if it saves you one sick person in your house having to go to the hospital and sitting in the waiting room for 12 hours and then sitting in the emergency department for 48 hours before you get to go upstairs, it's worth it. I think those kind of messaging pieces are going to be much more valuable than because we've seen it. It's not effective, unfortunately. I would love to say it was. We've seen it. It's not as effective as I'd love it to be.
Gino, questions, comments?
I concur with the gentleman. The question is still a very small, and people are more, excuse me. I can see when I go shopping, I go to church, many people bring the mask. This is a minor thing. As long as the children in school don't catch it, and then they have COVID-19, that is going to be terrible. But I don't think at this moment, I think we should wait another couple, 3 weeks, and then we see. I think we're getting better. It seems like every day we're getting better. Some people might have cold and they go to the hospital. They think they can get help right away. No, like he said, he had to wait. So, and most of the people that I see when I walk or going to different stores are very careful. So let's see what happens. But it's always good to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and we'll certainly keep an eye on it. Matt, I was thinking that a possible action item for us might be to put out some messaging, perhaps just a little bit more of a more stronger guidance maybe than last time regarding staying healthy and wearing your mask in the right places. Something that we can get out through the PR firm in town. We can add a note about the Vax Clinic on there. And also through LCTV. I know Dave and Kirby and Judy and everybody have been really helpful, but they don't create the content. So if we can put together some slides that they can put up there, and we can definitely talk to Liz Tretiak about doing a PSA, and maybe one or two members of the board would like to be on that PSA just to explain and put into layman's terms some of the concerns we have and why the message is being put out there.
Yeah, so I guess kind of speaking of Dan's point, I'm all on board with getting communication out there. I think we just haven't been very good at getting communication out there, or people just don't care about the communication. I think it'd be great if we had some content, and I almost feel like kind of going back to the staging tool that we had worked on a couple months ago is I almost want it just to be kind of templated out so that we can go, well, here's the Littleton level right now. And if we could have a sign that businesses could have and everybody could have the same sign, and we could say, well, here's the level in Littleton right now, and this is the recommendation. I can put something together to go out on the TV and the other media channels. I question as to how much of the audience that's really going to hit, but happy to do it. And then the other piece is, because these numbers are changing so often, I also want to see some way that we can be more agile with the information so that we don't have the last messages 2 months ago and people are going, well, is it really still bad because they haven't updated it yet?
Yeah, we should date everything. Absolutely.
Sure. But I don't have a lot of solutions, but this is why we were pushing to try to get this stuff more posted on the web, which isn't going to happen for probably another couple months still. So I'm open to other ideas as well, like I said, about how can we have our communication be more in time, and then make sure people are getting the updates about, frankly, if in 2 weeks when we meet and these numbers aren't red anymore, then there should also be a message saying we're feeling better about things. Because I don't want the only messaging to be the negative messaging or the things are bad.
So we should also prepare, I think, a document that we can get printed off with some signs to distribute to more popular locations, just to let people know what the level is in town, because they may just have no idea.
Right. I would love to hear what other people think about that. Like if we had a templated sign and people could just slot in one of the 4 pieces into it, including the municipal offices, to say, here's our current level. When you come in these doors, would you please do this? Or if owners want to, it's say, listen, when you come into my establishment, you must do this, because I know there are still some businesses that want to make that choice as well.
Yeah, I think giving them those options will help it, educate people and keep everybody safer, especially those establishments that, want to make that decision, whether they want people to wear masks or not. Leave it up to them, and just at least put the information out there so everybody's aware of the current situation.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Because frankly, I think a sign on the door of Dunkin' might potentially hit more people than some of our other channels.
you could be right.
Okay, I have some stuff that I had crafted up a little while ago that I'll resurrect and try to get out to the group.
All right, I'm sending an email out as soon as this meeting's over. I have it all teed up. I just want to spell check it, and then you'll get it after this. But
And I'll throw my name in there. If you guys want some more help?
great. Yeah, I'll CC the board on it. BCC the board on it. Just don't reply all. Any other questions regarding the ID decision support tool and community illness levels? If not, we will move on to our 7:05 public hearing for 9 Air Road regarding the shared system approval. Someone here to represent 9 Air Road. Please raise your hand. Jeffrey Avini. Brenda, could you please promote Jeffrey?
Yep, he's there.
Thanks. Hi, Jeffrey. Please state your name and address.
Hi, Attorney Jeffrey Avini, representing Traditional Concepts, Inc., and my address is 6 Grove Ave in Leominster, Mass.
Thanks for coming. How can we help you?
So I had a email exchange with Mr. Gariffi about the grant of the Title V easement for this locus. It was a template document that I actually cleaned up a little bit, got the right title references in. I presented to Mr. Gariffi, and he put it on the agenda for the, I guess, what we're going to call a final review and approval by your board.
Mm-hmm. And Jim had no, well, I can read Jim's comments on this. Standby.
Sure.
These are Jim Gariffi's comments. 9 Air Road. The board has met with the previous owners of this property to discuss the approval of a shared sewage disposal system for the above mentioned property. At that meeting, the engineer for the property presented the sewage disposal system design, and I explained to the board the proposed sewage disposal system design complied with Title V and your regulations, with the exception of recording the grant Title V covenant and easement. The DEP document, which spells out the rights and obligations of property owners served by the shared sewage disposal system. The board felt that since the document is specific to the owner of the property, they would wait to endorse the grant of Title V covenant and easement until there was an owner. Once the grant is signed, then a permit for the shared sewage disposal system can be issued. There's a new owner of the property, and I received a copy of the completed grant document from the owner's attorney attached to this document. The actual system design has not changed since your meeting with the previous owner's engineer, and the sewage disposal system permit can be issued once your board signs the grant document. The new owner would like to move forward and obtain the permit for the sewage disposal system, and since the remaining issue is the legal framework for the system, the owner's attorney will be attending the meeting to answer any questions you may have before signing the document. If you should have any questions regarding the system design document or shared system approval process, please don't hesitate to contact me. Gino Faralloni, any questions, comments?
No question. Thank you.
Dan Kane, questions, comments? No? Kevin Davis?
No questions.
Kevin Davis, questions, comments?
No questions or comments?
Matt Wason, questions, comments?
No questions or comments.
Okay. Is there a motion? Or is anybody from the audience have any comments, public input? Attorney Avini, do you have any final questions, comments?
I don't. The only question would be procedurally. I would assume it's going to have to be circulated among the board, and then it's going to have to get back to my office for recording. I can work that out with Jim if that's easier for the board.
Yeah, you'll probably work it out with Brenda. I know I'll be in there if the board votes to approve
Okay.
it tonight. I'll be in there tomorrow to sign, and I'm sure these gentlemen can make their way through
That'd be great.
before
Thank
the
you.
end of the week. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we grant approval to the shared septic system for 9 Air Road as described in the grant of Title V covenant easement presented.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Gino Fratelloni,
yes.
Kevin Davis,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. Thank you, Attorney Aveen.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
You too. Next up is our 7:10 public hearing for 35 Dahlia Drive. It was a continuance for the variance request. Civil Solutions is here. Brendan, could you please promote Kevin from Civil Solutions? The revised plan for consideration of local upgrade approvals, and then the revised plan was received. So I'll go ahead and read Jim's comments on this. I'm sure everybody here remembers the case. The applicant's 35 Dahlia Drive. The applicant's engineers revised the design for the proposed sewage disposal system at this address to reduce the number of variances required. The board had concerns regarding the proximity of the proposed leaching area to the existing water line. The revised design has the water line being moved to meet Title V required offset. The applicant is looking to reduce the groundwater offset 4 feet to 2 feet and the offset for the placement of fill to a lot line with the use of a poly barrier. The location of the proposed leaching area has not changed, and these reductions will allow the leaching area to be placed in a location on that lot that will allow the system to be served by gravity. This area of town is served by town water, and the amount of grading needed is small and should not increase the surface runoff from the property. Does anyone want Kevin to share the plan, or can everybody see it in the packet?
I can see it in the packet. Unless you want the public to see it.
Sure, Kev, do you have it handy to share so everybody can see it?
I do. Can you see that now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so what we've done, we're on the corner of Dahlia and Grove. We've got the existing system up here. It's in the groundwater. We're proposing a new leaching area here, a new Presby. After our last meeting, the board seemed concerned. You didn't seem like you were keen on granting the variance for the offset to the leaching area to the water line. So basically what we've done, we're proposing to relocate the water line to have at least a minimum of a 10-foot separation with the Title V code. So when they dig this up, if for some reason any other portion is closer, which we'll relocate whatever needs to be to maintain a minimum of 10-foot offset from the leaching area to the water line.
Is there water on Dahlia too?
There is water on Dahlia, but the service comes off of Grove for some reason.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have questions? Gino Fratelloni, questions, comments?
No question. Seems like he's doing all right.
Kevin Davis,
I like what I see. Thank you for the extra work.
Dan Kane,
No questions.
Matt Wason.
If I recall correctly, yes, there was kind of a concern about the number of variances, and I know the water line close to Leachfield was one of them, but I thought it was also the having to sleeve the outflow line that's crossing over the water line. And I know this layout was all set up so that you could maintain gravity feeding. But were we going to look at an option to say, if that leach field were somewhere else where it would require a pump, what would that look like?
I think it was either that or move the water line, and they chose to move the water line instead of having a pump, if my memory serves me.
Okay. I guess it's moving the water line away from the leach field, but not moving the water line away to get rid of that intersection. But yeah, with the source over there, there's not a whole lot of way around that, I guess.
No, and the crossing the water line, that's not necessarily, that's not a variance either. I mean, that is allowable.
You sleeve it as a precaution. That's not
Correct.
that's not a requirement.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to accept the plan as done with the variances from the groundwater offset from 4 feet to 2 feet that allow a fill within 7 feet of the property line with a poly barrier.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Kevin Davis,
Yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
yes.
Dan Kane.
I don't see any hands in the audience, so I'm not sure if you had public
Oh.
input, but
No, I don't see any hands either. Sorry.
okay. Nope, just making sure then, yes, Dan Kane, yes.
Matt Wason.
Sorry, did I hear you? Did that variance list include the use of a sieve analysis?
Friendly amendment, including a sieve analysis.
Matt Wason, yes.
And Kevin Baker votes yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
I did have one other question if we have a second. So last meeting I was in for multiple projects, one other one being 47 Taylor Street. That was where the pump chamber was installed too close to the lot line.
Mhm.
I did talk to the contractor. He's willing to come in to the board. I thought it had been continued until this evening, but I didn't see it. It's not on the agenda. I wasn't sure.
I thought he was just going to move it and put it in the right place.
No, I thought he was going to come in and explain why he had to put
I
it.
was going to move it and put it in the right place. Okay. Yeah. Next meeting.
So I wasn't sure. I didn't want to tell him to come in if he wasn't on the agenda.
I'll have to revisit that.
Okay. No, I just didn't want to just drop it and forget about it. I wanted to wrap it up and
Yeah.
finish it off.
We ended up. Did we continue that?
I thought we did.
Okay. I'll have to look at the minutes or the video.
Okay.
Um,
But either one, I just wanted to mention it, and
thank you.
if it's continued, I'd like to continue it again so that it did have an abutter notification, so I didn't want to have to re-notify if
Okay.
we
Yeah.
just continue it.
Yeah. It's not on for tonight.
No,
So we'll talk in the morning and we'll get it on for the next one if he wants to come in. Who was
Okay.
the installer again?
that was the Radicore.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, and have a nice night.
You too.
You too. Happy New Year.
Next,
Same
we
to
have
you.
a public hearing at 7:15 for 557 Great Road. It's Evan Carloni with Innovative Septic Design. Brenda, could you please promote Evan? Thank you. And it's approval of a local upgrade from Title V and approval of a groundwater offset reduction. Hi, Evan. Could you just state your name and your address for the record?
Yes, it's Evan Carloni with Innovative Septic Design. The address is 51 Carter Street in Berlin, Massachusetts.
And could you please share your screen and show us your drawing? Your plan?
Yes.
Brenda, I think Bill Sturts fell off. Do you want to somehow maybe reach out to him and see if he can come back on for the next one?
I'll do that. Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. So again, Evan Carloni, Innovative Septic Design. What we have before you here today is a 4-bedroom replacement septic system design for 557 Newtown Road. The requests here are the use of a sieve analysis and also the reduction through the approval letter from 4 feet to 2 feet. We had groundwater at 4 feet. Well, the estimated high at 4 feet. And then the groundwater, it took a little while to show itself, and we started trying to run a perk and it wasn't moving. So we ended up taking a sample and brought it to the lab for sieve. So it's a geomat leach field that was used to maintain the yard as is up in that front yard. We're partially overlapping the existing leach field here. And that's it. Those are the two requests, the sieve analysis and the 2-foot reduction.
What's the age of the current system, if you don't mind me asking?
believe it's the 80s. Let me pull it up. The owner had sent it to me.
Pre-Title V.
Yes, it is. So, property survey. I don't have the exact date, but I remember the 80s. I can keep looking here.
Well, that's all right. I'm going to read Jim's comments. If you can find it, that's fine. If
Yep.
not, no big deal.
Yep.
557 Newtown Road, the sewage disposal system for the site has failed and the applicant is looking to replace the system. Oh, here we go. Soil testing was conducted and a suitable location for the system was found in front of the house. Previous testing in 1994 found poor soil conditions to the rear of the property, very slow perk rate and high groundwater. The soil evaluation holes examined for the design revealed a significant amount of fill, and with depth, the soil became damp. It was determined a sieve analysis would be a more appropriate way to determine a perk rate for the site than to conduct a perk test. Along the front lot line of the property is a stone retaining wall and the grade drops down to the road. The groundwater reduction and use of the geomat system will allow a system to be installed given the challenges noted on site. The proposed geomat will be pressure dosed to achieve more equal distribution of the wastewater over the leaching area, and this allows for a reduction of the fill needed for the breakout grading. The pressure dosing of the geomat field also required an additional filter, one in the pump chamber, to improve the clarity of the wastewater. The area is served by town water and has more challenging soil conditions to the rear of the property. And with the use of the geomat pressure dosed, I believe the designer has provided a reasonable solution to the failed system. So it sounds like this was tested in 94.
Yep,
Bill?
I did just find that. I've got a received of the as-built for in November 18th, 1994 for the current system, but that was actually for a just a system, the septic tank replacement.
Oh, okay.
So they hooked on to the existing leach field.
Got it.
Yeah.
Kevin Davis, any questions, comments?
Couple. How far away from the property line is the proposed geomat?
It is.
Is it more than 10 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
It is about 13 feet.
All right. And then the other question that I have is, you have a note there for number 5, extent of conventional system. So this is if they went with a conventional system. Why was it chosen not to go with the conventional system? Would it be too close to the groundwater, or what were the reasons? What were the trades?
It would be bounded by, it would be a mounded system. So you'd have a hump on the side of the yard that would be a long rectangular hump. So it would be, let's see, 4 feet. It'd be roughly 2 feet, 2 foot mound, maybe a tad higher.
Okay.
Yeah. And to save in material, the conventional systems have the 5 foot overdig, the geomat, and a number of other systems have gone away from the 5 foot overdig. So it helps a bit with cost as well.
Okay. That's all that I've got. Thank you.
Gino Fratelloni?
It's okay.
Dan Kane?
I was gonna say, my question was gonna be, the lot looks relatively good size. The house is relatively close to the street, so, but you kind of already answered the piece of the rear of the house being an option or not, and it sounds like it's not. Doing a drive-by, it's the geomat is protected. It looks like it's kind of behind a stone wall in that corner anyway, so nope, I don't think I have any questions.
Matt Wason?
No questions, thanks.
Evan, are there any wetlands around?
No.
All right.
No wetlands.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Go, Dan.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we grant the approval of a 2 foot offset from the estimated high groundwater level as shown on the approval letter, and use of the, help me out, guys. Is it a Presby or is it geomat? Geomat?
Geomat and a
Geomat.
sieve.
Geomat.
And a sieve.
And a sieve analysis in place of a perk test. Thank you.
I second it.
All right, motion and a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Jennifer, yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
and Matt Wason.
Matt Wason, yes.
And Kevin Baker votes yes. Thank you very much, Evan.
Okay, thank you all for your time. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
Next, we have a 7:20 public hearing with 55 Orchid Drive with Bill Sturts, start to finish construction company, for consideration of approval for a finished basement. And I see Bill is back. Everyone have the plans from the packet in front of them?
Yes, I do.
Hello.
Hi, Bill. How are you? Could you just state your name and address for the record?
Okay, Bill Sturts, 3 Buttonwood Way, Littleton, Mass.
Thanks for
So,
coming.
thank you for seeing me. Hopefully, my connection stays with us because I just lost it for a few minutes, but got you back. So, real quick, we were in front of the board for 55 Orchid Drive for a sieve analysis for an approval for a new septic system. There was a 3-bedroom. We have put up the new house, and the new buyer, the owner, would like to finish the basement with a playroom. It's a walkout basement, so a playroom, a hobby room, and a finished storage area. It is only a 3-bedroom, so we have room count of 7 if you include the kitchen with the breakfast, eat and breakfast area. So I am looking for approval for room counts for the lower level.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read Jim's notes. I can see them. All right, 55 Orchid Drive. The applicant would like to finish the basement of this house, which is currently under construction. A new sewage disposal system has been installed on the site for a 3-bedroom house, and according to the bedroom definition in Title V, this would allow for a room/bedroom count in the home of 8 rooms, including 3 bedrooms. I have reviewed the plans for the home and proposed basement addition, and I arrive at 10 rooms. If you consider the kitchen breakfast area as 1 room, including 3 bedrooms. Since a room count exceeds the board's policy, which allows me to approve the permit application, even with a deed restriction, I have asked the applicant to present the plan to the board for your review and approval. Kevin Davis, any questions, comments?
Circle back to me, please.
Okay. Matt Wason, questions, comments?
Yes. So I was getting, was his 10 count including the finished plan? Is that what that was?
Yeah, correct.
Jim, okay. So on the finished plan on the basement, I see it says walkout basement. And is this basically 2 large finished spaces, one between the garage and this bathroom, and one between the bathroom and the outer wall to the east, as it were?
So it's a large room on the whole walkout side, kind of an open playroom, and a finished storage area near the garage, and then a hobby room, I guess. And it's kind of partially a utility room as well, but they'd like to just finish the whole basement because it is a walkout and it's a nice space.
And it looks like an office.
Potentially, yeah, he might use it as his office as well. So he does not have an office upstairs.
I guess so. I'm seeing 2 large pieces of finished space. Is that correct? Because it's not connected at all, right? There's a wall that runs along the stairs and doors.
Yeah, so 2 separate rooms, but then also a storage area it's going to be finished, just because when you insulate, you have to cover it with sheetrock anyway. So, to have a finished storage area is better anyways.
Where is the storage area?
Is there any way to see the plan? I don't.
Yeah, I can, let me share my screen here.
And that would be just for the proposed basement.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I don't have that. Sorry, I didn't see that markup green. Oh, that's much further
Okay.
down. I was looking at the pre-markup.
It's 34 of 34.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
so the storage is a finished area. The hobby room is a finished area. The play, it's all finished.
Actually, I think since we've met, we've decided to make the hobby room and the storage room kind of together. They do need some unfinished, utility space. So it's really one less room that I'm showing here. It should be a playroom, an office, and a storage area. And the office is a hobby room / office.
So,
But,
so basically, you're not doing 4 rooms in the basement. You're doing 3 rooms in the basement.
Yes,
Brings you
that's
up,
correct. Just 3
that
down there.
brings you up to a total of 10 rooms. Typically, what we do is we take the total room count, divide it by 2, and round down if it's a half number. And that would be the capacity of the septic system that you would need. So at 10 rooms divided by 2, that's a 5-bedroom septic. Typically this board, with a deed restriction would allow, I guess it would be 9 rooms divided by 2, round down. That would necessitate a 4-bedroom septic, but with a deed restriction, we typically allow that.
But this is a 3-bedroom system, correct?
That's correct. Brand new 3-bedroom.
Right. And we would put a deed restriction on there that it needs to remain a 3-bedroom home.
Yes, and I'm fine with that. Yeah, there's no intention for a bedroom down there, just playroom, storage space, office.
And the new owners understand that?
The new owner is good with that? Yes.
They understand that, what this all means?
Yeah. Yes, that they need a deed restriction. They can't have a bedroom down there. That's correct.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's something that Jim Griffey has the wording for, or,
There's a template.
Okay.
That they would have their attorney register. They sign the paperwork, register it at the registry, and once there's proof of registration, that's when you can bring it back to the board, and the necessary permits will be issued.
Okay, I am the owner, and so it would be something that I will be taking care of.
Great. Sorry, I didn't ask everybody. Dan Kane, questions, comments?
So yeah, I just want to back up a little bit here. So we are at an existing room count of either 7 or 8.
Yeah.
If we count the kitchen and breakfast as a single space, there is a space in front that's like part pantry, part mudroom. Both of those look, or at least the pantry area on that first floor,
Yeah.
looks bigger than that 7x7 space. That's usually considered a habitable space. Main floor, front of the house.
Yep. 2.
No, front of the house. Keep going, front of the house. There we go. So we have this space, which looks like it's half mudroom, half pantry space. Unfortunately, your spaces aren't marked size-wise very well, but so I'm not sure if that counts as a habitable space or not. But even if we say, I think saying there's 3 rooms on this first floor is being generous, because either kitchen, dining room, kitchen, breakfast nook needs to be 2, or that kitchen breakfast is 1, and we've got this other front storage mudroom space. I think we're kind of giving you a freebie on that space somehow. So
I think they're
but we're at
small.
7.
They're under 70 square feet each. It looks like those 2 little where the bench is.
It's hard to
Yes,
say.
they
'Cause, yeah,
are.
nothing's actually marked off. So in the plan,
That space is mostly hallway.
that's the second floor space. We have 3 bedrooms and a bonus room with a walk-in closet.
Correct.
And that bonus room happens to be very, very close to the same size as the master bedroom, right?
You have to wink before you say that.
I really don't, and I feel bad asking the question but I have to ask it because I'm just looking at this going.
I know.
You get 3 bedrooms and a bonus room with a walk-in closet that happens to be on the main bedroom floor, and it happens to be the same size as the master bedroom. I have to ask. That sure looks like it sure quacks like a duck. That sure looks like It's easily and potentially a fourth bedroom there. And that if somebody put a fourth bedroom in there, no one would at all be surprised or go, that's not what it's intended for. I'm a little bit concerned about that. But if we're at, if we're saying this is 4 rooms, first floor is 3 rooms, that's 7. We still have 3 rooms, that's 10 rooms total. We cut it in half, that gets us to a 5-bedroom system. We're still over a room. Even with the deed restriction, I think we're still over a room.
Yeah, and is
For a
that
3-bedroom
bonus room
system.
heated?
Which room?
The bonus room?
Yes, it's a finished room.
I'm just double checking my numbers. It seems, I think we're over still
Well,
a room.
There's definitely
Even with the deed restriction.
7 rooms up in the existing finished house. I mean, I could cut it down to 2 rooms downstairs, but again, one of them is a bonus, as a storage room, sorry. In the basement. It's
Finished, heated.
the
Sealed up?
storage room. It will not have ductwork or the basement will be a mini split system. But the only thing it may have is a small piece of electric baseboard just to keep it at a, you know, a normal temperature. It's definitely not considered to be finished as a bedroom.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be finished as a bedroom, but it's finished heated space. It's
Well, we don't have plans to heat it right now. I mean, I can leave the baseboard heat out of it. It was going to be a small piece just to take the chill off, but I don't need to do it.
I'm just trying to make sure that we are clear and above board in this one, because I mean it went from a 1,000-foot 3-bedroom lake area, you know, cottage to 3,000 square foot plus now another 1,300 basement with a 3-bedroom septic system. I'm just really worried about it's a whole lot of house on a very small system on a very small lot with very little resource if the system fails.
Yeah, I mean, I know I just built the system, so I have 10 feet of very expensive septic sand there. I know it's designed as a 3-bedroom. It's not a super small lot. It's a full half acre.
I thought it was listed as a quarter on the assessor's sheet.
No, it's 2 parcels. So there's a front parcel and a back parcel. They should have all been merged together, but it's a full half acre.
Weren't able to just simply design it as a larger system. I mean, it's too late now.
Well,
The system's in the ground, but
Because of the time of year, we did a sieve analysis, and that was what that last variance was for. And the system's already in. So, I mean, at this point, I really can't redesign
I guess I think that's kind of my piece. It's a very, very large house with a very small system. And now finishing the basement mid-construction, it just seems a little bit awkward.
Okay.
Bill, quick question.
Yes.
How big is that one playroom room? Do you know the square?
It's over the whole garage, so it's 24.
No, not the bonus room.
Oh, that playroom?
Yeah.
It is about 26 feet long and 16 feet wide.
Okay.
It's most of the space. I mean, I know that's their priority room, is to get that one finished, and maybe the office. I mean, the storage could say unfinished if they had to.
Yeah, I mean, I think, did I miss anybody on comments or questions? Did I miss Gino? Oh, and I need to circle back to Kevin too. Kevin, do you have questions?
No comment.
Okay. Kevin, questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm in line with Dan here. I'm looking at everything, and there's a wink and a nod on that bonus room upstairs when it's the same size as a master bedroom and it's got a closet in it. I got a real problem with that. Not counting it as a bedroom. And then if I squint really hard, yeah, maybe. But the basement, I'm not liking the fact that it's 10 rooms divided by 2. Is 5. That's even 1 more than we normally do. It's just I have problems.
Okay. Well, could we get approval for the playroom and potentially an office space, and leave the rest unfinished?
I would make a motion to allow 2 finished rooms in the basement.
I
Two-
second.
Two finished and conditioned rooms in the basement. And Gino, what'd you say?
I said, I agree with the extra, yeah. They want to do something in the cellar?
So we'll have a roll call vote.
Right, okay.
Hold on one second. I want to be clear what this is. So that's
Yeah.
9. So it's 9 rooms, divide by 2, round down, it's 4. Okay.
With a deed restriction.
Yeah.
Yeah, the restriction, yes.
I guess there's a motion with a second.
Yeah.
That requires a vote, or if we could have further discussion.
Yeah, go ahead. Have a. make-
Based upon how we approach room counts, that breakfast is a dining area, and we would count that if we looked at these plans on another house, it would be 4 rooms on the main floor, 4 rooms on the upstairs. It's at 8. It would already need a deed restriction in place for a 3-bedroom system. Is that correct?
Are you asking me or the board?
No, board members, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from. Jim called it 1 room. I don't know how he arrived at that. I do think we need to take a look at how we determine whether things are 1 room or 2 rooms. And I do believe I mentioned at our last meeting that the cutoff was 300 square feet, and any room over 300 square feet would be counted as 2 rooms.
Right.
I was just doing the quick math, looking at this plan, and maybe Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And this really has very, very little to do with you, more about our overall process. But it looks to me like the kitchen and breakfast area are together maybe 24 by 14.
That's correct.
Which is like 336 feet. So Matt, I think you're right.
But I mean, you're right. We don't have a set
But we don't
definition.
have that, right?
It's on our list of
And I
things to
think,
talk
I
about.
think until that's in place, and maybe we can, formulate something and discuss it at our next meeting and potentially adopt something in the next month.
So even if it were 7 existing on the main and upper floors, typically this board would allow 1 more with a deed restriction, because that would bring you to a system that would technically be 1 extra bedroom.
Right.
All right.
Correct? So that would be 8 total for a 3-bedroom with a deed restriction. 9 or 10, something like that. In my experience, this board has always said no.
Okay.
And I think the sticky part then is the kitchen and dining area, breakfast area. Because a realtor is not going to sell this house and say it's not a dining room, are they? Because they're going to say the house has no dining room. It becomes an awkward thing. And I agree. It's this, well, where are we going to call it? And I just want to be really careful, because we've told other people with spaces, we've said, well, that's a dining room and that's that. So I'm not sure how to proceed.
So are you suggesting just 1 room in the basement be finished?
I'm saying that would bring your room count to 8 as a minimum, 9 if you argue about the kitchen and breakfast being 2 rooms.
Right. But I think either one of those gets you're in need of a 4-bedroom septic. So I think the 9 is safe. Or I think it's
Except you have a 3-bedroom septic.
with a deed restriction.
Right, with the
I think
reason.
you're still at a 4 as far as Title V.
We let people go. If somebody has a 4-bedroom system, they can build 8 or 9 without really doing anything. And if they want the 10th, we have to give them an approval and a deed restriction, because 10 pushes them into the next level.
Right.
Right.
So here, 8 pushes you into the next level. So I'm saying anything above 8 would be historically not approved.
It'd be
Right.
setting a precedent.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to withdraw my motion.
So we have if I may speak, we have a, approved house with no deed restriction for what's there. So really, that would say that it's a 7-room house, correct? So that would allow us 1 large playroom, I guess, we could be allowed to do in the basement, which is on the other set of plans. And the bathroom with some storage area.
Without coming before the board, yeah, Jim would approve that for you with a deed restriction.
Okay. Then I will revise my plan, talk to my homeowner, and resubmit that.
Thank you very much. Do you want us to continue this, or do you want to just wait to see?
So will I need a deed restriction, or Jim will be able to do that?
Jim would be able to do the deed restriction on the 1 bedroom over the room count.
Okay, then I would say no, we do not continue it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Have a good year.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to our 7:25. Sorry, Bridget, we're running late. Discussion on food truck regulations with Bridget Bailey, Neshoba Board of Health, who is our food inspector. Bridget, if you could just state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Bridget Braley, Neshoba Board of Health.
Good to have you here.
Same.
So did you want to start things off for us, or should we just get into the questions? Or
So it's completely up to you what you have for questions. If there's anything specific that you wanted to address, or
Well, I think that the main reason for having you on is, we just went through an approval process for a food vendor in town, and we are trying to be very careful about setting precedent, and wanted to talk with you a little bit, not only about, your day-to-day and your processes and how we can help, but also when we're put in this situation, it makes us think that with no mobile food vendor regulations in place, we should probably talk about getting them in place and see what major issues that you're seeing out there that we might want to include in something like that.
okay. So there's two components of it. Obviously, there's the public health perspective from my end, the food service end. And then there's the other perspective. And so I just kind of, as my introduction to the mobile food world, when I started about, it was almost 25 years ago, we only had we call them the roach coaches. They were just simply there were 3 of them, I think. And they mostly circulated construction sites. What they did is they would pick up their food at a commissary. That would include coffee, all of the food was pre-made at the commissary, so they would pick that up. And then they would go out during certain times of the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Some of them were 3, did the 3 meals. Some were just exclusively lunch. And then they would discard any of the food that was left over, and next day go back to the commissary, which I believe at the time was in Woburn. So that was the extent of what we had. It has now evolved into a whole host of different things, from just a simple cookie truck and whoopie pie truck, cannoli truck, to hot dogs. And now we have sandwiches. Some of them are doing things like pulled pork, braised short ribs, all of that. And I think the biggest issue public health wise in the food end of it we're seeing is, of course, in order to serve food and make money, you have to serve so many people. And the concern is, yes, the trucks, some of them are soup to nuts, fantastic, but the size of the truck. When you look at the truck and you stand in the truck and you're actually watching how things are done, size is the biggest limitation. And our biggest question that started to come up is, where are you prepping your food? Where are you storing your food? Where is the food delivered? Where are you getting your potable water? Where are you disposing of the gray water? A couple of weeks ago, I had someone tell me that he was literally going to dump it down a storm drain. Another individual had told me that he dumps it down his friend's septic system. Again, all prohibited uses. And as they sort of evolve and we get things like, for example, lobster salad. Again, that's a food where in preparation for an event that might serve 300, we want to know, where are you prepping that? Where is the lobster being delivered to? And unfortunately, we're finding that some of the stuff is now happening out of people's homes. And that's the major issue. the base of operation is really where we're looking for them to have food delivered, stored, bring the cart or truck back to, clean it, sanitize it, do your dishes there, get your potable water there, dispose your gray water there. And again, it's just to ensure public health safety standards based on some of the events that they're serving too. So I think those are the biggest issues now, is that we have evolved into basically a kitchen on wheels. And the problem with that is, if you go into a regular food establishment, a brick and mortar, they have multiple refrigerators. They have walk-in freezers, walk-in coolers, water on demand. And that's sort of some of the stuff that's lacking. Is we do our best in the beginning as far as the approval process to work through that, but we cannot physically be there day to day, and we don't have access to them like we do a restaurant. If there's a problem or an outbreak, norovirus, anything, we have access to a brick and mortar immediately, unlike a mobile food truck. So those are some of the biggest concerns that are coming up, especially as the menus are increasing. Then the other non-Board of Health issue where the mobile regulations are coming in is when the trucks are parking in parking lots. Towns are now looking at that through zoning planning board as a change in use of the property and requiring things like traffic studies, site plan review. And as you have more trucks come in, you might have more portable toilets, you might have seats come in, sign issues. And that again is not a Board of Health issue, but that's where towns are addressing it separately through zoning, planning, Board of Selectmen, things like that. So that's sort of my quick summary of mobile food in a nutshell.
Great. We'll just go around the board and see if there's any questions or comments. Kevin Davis.
I think the big question that we had the last time that we were here, if I remember correctly, and when we were talking about it, was ensuring that we met all of those food safety requirements like you were just talking about, and that it was going to be a challenge. And I guess the other thing is like, what, and the other part of this too is part of Neshoba's Board of Health. When you guys approve it, what other towns also kind of get approved, through the matter? So in other words, you approve it at the Neshoba's Board of Health. That means it goes for Littleton and n number of other towns. We also, as we were trying to figure out food truck regulations, wanted to make sure that we aligned with other towns, so that way they weren't having to get 75 different approvals and all that kind of good stuff. So those were the two things I think that I remember from the conversations.
So for us, what we do is we have, when we license the food truck, we license them for all of our towns. So they're all under the same, and they can, and this is where we look at it, is the mobile trucks, they move. And by moving, they're going town to town to different events. So as long as they're in our jurisdiction of the 16 towns that we cover, the approval process goes like this. We get the application, we request a whole bunch of information. And then once everything is done and we have all the information that we need, we follow up with an inspection. They don't get a permit from us until the mobile food truck is inspected. And then they travel, they're good until October 31st. And then we start the renewal process and we go through the whole thing again. As part of the renewal process, they don't have to resubmit the plans and do the plan review, but they do have to get the truck inspected prior to us issuing the permit. And as part of that, again, we're just looking at a snapshot. The truck is coming in. We want to make sure they have water. We want to make sure that things are sized appropriately. The refrigerators are running. Again, the issue becomes, because of the size of the truck and things that we do not have control of, when they do go to temporary events, we don't know if they have an event that's 1,000 people, there's no way that truck has refrigeration for 1,000 people. So they're bringing stuff in coolers, which is, again, it's out of our control. We do the best that we can to give them the best information, and sort of take it from there. We are trying to now do more spot inspections during temporary events. The problem with that is a lot of times they're on the weekend, and I mean, that's a staffing issue. It's for any town on the weekends, paying overtime. Obviously, it's difficult, but we try to get out there a little bit more to do. We call them. We have a separate inspection sheet that we do, and it's just sort of a quick follow up for them. So I think to go back and really just answer your question, they all have, for all of our towns, there's no town that requires anything different. There are some towns that are, I think Berlin is one of them, and I think they approved their mobile food regulations, but or it might be a bylaw through the selectman's office.
Thank you.
Yep.
Very good.
Anyone else?
As long as they have the permit, I don't think we should worry about.
Right. And then if something does come up,
Right.
again, one of the things that Jim and I had been discussing is if there's something that specifically comes up and if they're at a temporary event, we'll deal with that specifically with the town where the temporary event is, if there's a problem, and then take it from there.
So if they come without a permit, the best thing to do is go get the permit, then you can come
Yes.
to our town.
Yes.
So you do the best, and the board should understand that everything actually is done with when they have the permit.
Yes.
Only
And
we have to be aware, if they don't have a permit, then we say, I'm sorry, you can't have the spot until you get your permit from Nashoba.
Right.
But I thank you so much. You did a good job. I appreciate
thank
it.
you.
So if I could ask a follow-up to that, then is there a list somewhere on a website or somewhere of the food trucks that are licensed to operate within the Neshoba 16 towns?
Yes. So we last year created a list because the food permits expired and I think there was maybe 37 to 40 people on that list by the end of last year. Because we're in the renewal process now and it's the slow season, we only have 3 people on the list right now. We do have some in queue that are coming in. We did ask them to be cognizant of the fact that we don't want everybody coming in, obviously, in May, 40 food trucks. Just because for time constraints, getting everybody inspected, they're all looking for the same usually date and time. So we asked them about 45 days before you think you're going to start operating again, start the renewal process so that we can get you in a timely fashion, get you inspected and get you on your way. So I presume that in the next probably 30, 35 days, that list is going to start growing.
So the licenses, did they all expired at a certain time?
So all of our food permits expire on October 31st.
Okay. And so since October 31st, you've had a small handful of
Yes.
trucks reapply and get relicensed. Okay.
Yes.
Where is that list?
So I have it, it's on my computer and I think what we are going to do is just because the list right now, like I said, there's only 3 on it. As that list grows, we're going to try and put that up on the website and then update it daily.
Okay.
As
That'd be a
like,
big
as the
ask for me
season.
simply because obviously this board isn't watching food trucks drive around. And I'm most concerned about as they start to travel and go to different places, a business signing up to have a food truck come to them, having no concept of the fact that they might be talking to a food truck that is not licensed. And it would be, I think, really handy if we could tell businesses to say, hey, if you want to have one of these come to your establishment, check this list to know you're okay.
Yes. And so what we try to do too is we've had actually, there's a few different spots in Littleton, bars, things like that, that are very limited in what they sell. And, we've explained to them, call us anytime. They have my email me. And if you have any question at all, we can walk you through it, let you know who's licensed, who's not licensed. What some food trucks do, just because it's quicker, and it's just easier for them, they'll do a temporary food permit. For a temporary food permit, we don't require the inspection of the food truck, but what we do require is a copy of their permit from wherever it is they're coming from in their last inspection, so that we can ensure that they've been inspected and licensed appropriately before they come into whatever town we have. And then if we, depending on when the event is, we try to get out to those events, do a quick spot inspection. So there is that route, and I do let people know that, because we cover 16 towns, and because we have a couple of towns that have really big venues, I'm familiar with a lot of the food trucks now. So the dialogue is it's getting better. And it's obviously easy for all of us to work together. So we are trying to reach out. And then in between inspections, even in the food world, we're doing email blasts. And as part of that, it's sort of like an inspection in between inspection, letting people know what to look for. And then we let them know if they are thinking of having a food truck to contact us, and we can let them know who's licensed and not, and how to get them there.
And I want you to understand, my question is not like concerned that the process isn't working well. For me, it's, as a relatively new member on the board, it's just having access to that information and insight.
Yes.
Because if some community member comes up to me and says, "Hey, Matt, what's going on with that food truck?" and I go, "Well, I don't know."
I know.
And so
No,
the more we have
exactly.
access to that, and as you talk about that, I wonder if it's something that the board can vehemently shake their head no. If it's something like, whenever you give one of those temporary permits, for example, should an email go to the generic Littleton Board of Health email address, just so that it's pinged and it's on some record that somebody has eyes on?
So we do, I don't know if you see them, we do, for the temporaries, we do send you copies of those in the envelope. And we do request that people get those 2 weeks in advance, so that we have plenty of time to review and get them where they need to be before the event. And usually you would receive that before the event, so you'd know. So those permits are usually, we put them in the envelope for you. But we can, it's just, like I said, in some of them, unfortunately, it's a last minute event. It's literally where we ask for 14 days. Sometimes they'll come to us and it's 24 hours before. And if they have everything they need, what we do is we obviously, if they have what they need, we approve it and then issue the permit. So,
Got it.
But if you, and I tell all of the boards, if you ever have any question, always feel free to email me. Unfortunately, I have a laptop at home, so I'm always accessible, I guess, as I'm not supposed
No,
to.
I think it's much more, I'm trusting that it's all working. It's just if the question comes up and we haven't access to that. So yes, if we are expecting that we already have paper copies of those being delivered to us, I guess the follow-up would be to just say, Brenda, I assume she's still on. Yes, there she is. Say, do we have a process for that? And do we know what we're doing with them? But we can take that offline. I think my other question for you, Bridget, is I know there's been concern or, prior history trouble kind of catching some of these establishments. And the same kind of thing, I feel like, just as a heads up, if there's a food cart that cannot get inspected or is missing things, how can we make sure that we're just getting a communication loop on that, so that, not that we're going to, again, run around trying to find food carts, but just so that we have our eyes open to, there might be a problem because there's one that is way out of date and you're having trouble catching them.
So, I don't want to bore you with the food world problems, but it is an ongoing issue and it has been for years.
Long time.
We do everything that we can to, it's getting better. It definitely is getting better. But, you know, and I've explained to food trucks, because there's this big misconception. If I'm at a private event, then I don't need a permit. And that is not accurate. If you're going into a town, you need to have a permit. And, you know, again, the fee for a mobile food permit, I think they just voted to increase it from 110 to 130. $130 for a year to cover 16 towns is not a huge amount of money. And we're not asking anything unusual. I've consulted with other towns to find out how they're doing things. And because we want to be in line with people around us too. And we are in line with what everybody else is doing. I'd say like right down the middle. So, but there's always going to be that food truck that runs rogue, and I catch them all the time. It's become a science to me, but it happens. And like I said, we're doing everything we can to get them licensed, but there's always going to be that one that shows up somewhere. It just happens. I don't, you know, after so long, I don't know how to get them to do what they're supposed to do. But by the time we find out, it's obviously too late. But, you know, I have talked to Jim, you know, about sending letters to the venue where the event is so that they know too, and just opening up a dialogue to get to that point. But it is, I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer, but it definitely is getting better. So
The permit that's been given, is it visible for somebody to say, oh, by the way, I can see your permit?
So they're supposed to carry on them. They're supposed to have on them their food permit, their serve safe, their allergen, all of that's supposed to be posted. And I would say most of them do have it posted. We did have
Like in a
stickers.
window, like in sort of like a window thing?
Some of them have it inside the truck. Some of them keep it in a binder because of space purposes. We did have a sticker that we put on the back of the truck so that the police would also know. The problem is we would just use a Sharpie to write in the year and have different colored stickers for each year.
I got it.
But they would wash off the number and just rewrite. They figured out ways to. So we kind of did away with the stickers. We might go back to that again at some point. But we also email them so they have it on their phone usually if anybody questions them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
just
if I see one of those, I say, hey, by the way, I'd like to see your permit.
Yep.
Say, who are you? I'm a member of the Board of Health. I'm just wanted to make sure you don't, sell something without a permit.
Yes.
Am I okay to say that?
Yes. Yep. And then
Thank
you
you.
can call me. I always say, write down the name of the truck. We don't, not worth getting into a fight at that point. They're already there, but just, you can let me know and then we'll follow up with a written letter. And then the
Right.
board can also follow up by having them into a meeting. If
Thank
you
you.
choose. Yep.
Dan Kane.
All right. Bridget, have a drink. I have a bunch of
It's just
questions.
water.
Have a drink. Okay, no, that's all right. So you're awesome. It's a hard,
Thank
you're chasing herding cats. I get it. And it's a hard one to do, particularly over 16 towns. So good job. And it sounds like you're figuring it out. So I have a couple quick questions. I know certainly for brick and mortar, the expectation is usually a 6-month inspection. It should be inspected 6 months unless they're incredibly low risk
Yep.
practice. I make coffee and that's it.
Yep.
Then you can submit a plan to go longer. So it sounds like these are annual. So for example, those 3 that have now renewed in October, that 6 months from now will be April, just about the time they're probably going to be becoming the most busy, and doesn't sound like are they going to be re-inspected at that 6 month mark?
So the mobile food trucks are once a year, and the resident, also just a side note, residential kitchens are once a year. So it's that inspection is a once a year for mobile food.
So I'm held to a higher inspection standard when I'm a fixed brick and mortar kitchen with a Hobart and unlimited water and unlimited septic and all that great stuff. And if I'm working out of the back of my pickup truck, I can be visited once a year, and that's okay.
That's
the regulation.
That is the regulation.
Okay.
I have called, I will tell you this, I have called the state probably 3 times in the past 12 months, voicing my concerns over, at least for some of this, getting guidance in writing won't do it. But yes, I 100%
Okay.
agree. On a happy note, we won't start to see the food trucks coming in probably until April or May. So we'll get them at peak. If that makes, the ones that we've done now, Littletown Coffee, who is in the Springdale parking lot, he's pretty straightforward. It's nothing major. They're great truck. I did a cannoli truck a couple of weeks ago, and then I think I forget the other one, but it was just nothing extensive. It's the bigger ones will start up again during the high time, if that makes you feel any better. And to be honest, Dane, that is exactly why we are trying to do as many in-between spot inspections as possible. Because even though it says once a year, I do have concerns.
Nope. That's kind of what kind of brought me to that question. And I wasn't sure. So I was kind of curious both what your practice is and what your impression as a professional was on it. You hit a bunch of my other ones. Here in Littleton, if we were to enact our own regulations, obviously basing them on the DPH food standards, how would that work for you and your department if our regs were, certainly if they were less stringent, that's easy. If they were slightly more stringent or slightly different or varied from kind of the standard for the other 15 cities and towns, how would that affect the group licensure and your operations? Would it have to kind of go before the executive board of the SHOBA? Would it have to go to all the other community? Like, how would that work? Or would we have to have our own
if you had your own
license?
If you had your own regulations, then the trucks that would be going, that I would have to kind of look at, because would those trucks just be specifically for Littleton? And I can't really think of anything that you really should do as far as, because we go by the federal food code, which is pretty extensive. So I think the biggest issue with the trucks is the not moving component of it, or one location every day. And if they're at one location every day and even move from that one location, that's where the zoning piece of it comes in, which I think is really important, because like I said, we have seen people, unfortunately, through brick and mortars, like they just fighting. And we've had trucks have to move because either they wind up on town property, or, one of the things that we're concerned about in the future is the number of trucks that might show up in parking lots. And again, that would be non-Board of Health issue. But if the town started addressing that, it might alleviate some of those problems of, if trucks are there every day, possibly gray water being dumped out in the back, a bunch of portable toilets showing up. Another issue is trash. Depending on how many trucks you have, how much trash do they generate? Is there trash pickup? Do they have dumpsters? So I think the biggest piece is the towns addressing it on the zoning issue. Some towns, they deal with hours too. They don't want food trucks rolling in the middle of the night, lighting issues, stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, it's definitely a combination of kind of the public health and sanitation piece, as well as operations and zoning and select board and all those other pieces as well, which, we've been trying to really work hard. As you know, we have a non-moving mobile food location, which is a really hard one to, which standard do you apply? That, one piece, it'd be very easy to argue brick and mortar, it doesn't move, hasn't moved in years. On the other piece, we can put it on jacks, put wheels on it, and now it's a mobile site. So which standard do you use?
Right.
And when does that line change? So I
Yeah,
get some of those pieces. So
Right. It's one of the things someone else asked me, and I'm like, it's not my issue. It's not a Board of Health issue, but it's like, if it doesn't move, then why do they meet ADA compliance? Does the shelf, the counter meet ADA compliance? Does the unit meet ADA compliance to have staff that works there? And those are sort of, again, over the period of time since I've been at Neshoba, those are new things that are creeping up and evolving, and how, at some point, do they have to meet building code as well? Again, not my issue, but
right.
it's just how things are trending lately. So.
All right. I have two other not easy ones, but small ones. One, certainly, the busiest time for mobile food inspections, you've already said it. Summertime, it's easier. Summertime evenings or summertime weekends. 3 PM, not the busy time. It is
Right.
Saturday afternoon at the event on town common, whatever,
Right.
football field, or Thursday nights, Tuesday nights, whatever
Yep.
monthly night it is. Certainly not something to talk to Jim and your staff, other options to do some flex time that, okay, you know what? Yeah. Once a week, once a month, twice a month, or something going, you know what? I take Fridays off and I work late Thursday nights and I go cruising around to food trucks for a night. Certainly not suggesting that you change your practice, but certainly there's some options that may be to address a population that's hard to address.
Right. And that's sort of what we have been doing like this past year. Any bigger temporary events where there's a lot that roll in, there's some that come to mind. Again, Littleton isn't so much, Littleton definitely doesn't have this issue, but there are some where there's 10 to 20 food trucks, and we actually have that's what we do, is we have gone either later in the day, weekends, to do those spot inspections. But the other trend is during the week. So these food trucks have to make money, right? So if there's no event, or now the market is a little bit saturated and they're all competing for the same events, but then they get to the event and there's 8 other food trucks there. They're not making the same amount of money. So they have to supplement and do other things. So that's where there's that whole creeping up of in parking lots, renting parking lot space. We do see some of the cannabis shops have them for events during the week at lunchtime. So that is sort of the trend that is happening. It's not just the weekend events anymore. It's how am I going to make money all the time?
Yeah.
And that's sort of some of the headache that we're having, is pulling in a parking lot every day, 5 days a week. And then the pizza shop across the street is, upset, and not a Board of Health issue. I want to reiterate that, but those are just sort of, as time goes on and these trucks evolve, that's what we're seeing.
And because it's a food truck, you're getting the phone call, even though it may be 3 other departments' issues. It's zoning, it's select board, it's law enforcement, it's traffic, it's somebody else's issue, but it's a food truck, therefore it lands at the food department.
The calls are almost immediate. When somebody shows up in someone's parking lot, it is amazing how fast people find me.
Sorry.
It is what it is.
It is. I think my last question is, so you talked about temporary permits. So I'm a licensed food truck out of Woburn, outside of our district, and I'm going to come and do Third Thursday here in Littleton. So I've got all my paper. Here's my stuff. Can I come work in Littleton? You say yes, you've got all your stuff, all your ducks are in a row, all your paperwork is great, have a great time. And then I'm going to do First Tuesday in Acton. Here's all my paperwork. Can I get another temp permit? All right, it's now the next week, and it's, second Wednesday in Groton. Here's my paperwork. Can I get another temp permit? How many times can you do a temporary permit before you say, you know what, you probably should be licensed, inspected, and approved here in town? Because financially, I would think at some point it makes more sense. On the other hand, having the extent of our oversight for someone who comes in and goes, here's my little binder with my paperwork, and that's the extent of our oversight. At what point do we go, okay, once, twice, 3 times is me, but you know what? We are now your catchment, or we're in your service area. You need to follow our rules and go through the standard piece that anybody else would.
So they can technically get permits. So our temporary permits are good for 7 consecutive days. So they can get as many temporary permits as they want. There's no restriction. It's not financially beneficial to them, but the process is minus the inspection, but we do require that inspection report. And we look at those very closely from other towns. They still have to have a base of operation. We still need their contract. We still want the inspection report. We still want the food manager certificate, allergy certificate, the menu. So they're giving us everything, including the diagram of their unit plus their hawker and peddler's license. So at some point, if we even catch up with them and we do the inspection, it's just why they wouldn't want to come to us. Some of them just don't want to come to the office for the inspection. And I can't explain that. And I've told them, I'm like, we're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. I will accommodate you in any way that I can. Just bring your truck in. Some of them come from the Cape. Some of them come from other states. Some of them come from Connecticut, the western part of the state too. So they don't want to do it.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just kind of curious that piece of,
Yep.
at what point does it go from being temporary to not really being temporary, and kind of what are those impacts? So I apologize for all the questions. I
No.
probably have 1,000 more, but that's all I have at the moment.
No, I
so.
appreciate it. No one asked me questions, so it's good to let you know what I actually do and that there's a face to when you see the reports. But we do take it, I mean, just as a whole, we do take it very seriously, and we do everything that we can to make sure that at the end of the day, the main concern is the product that they're putting out is safe, and we do everything we can. And I tell them it's for them, and it's for us, but it's for them too. So.
Kevin Davis, did you have a follow-up?
I did. 2 things. The first one, is there a statewide licensure lookup? So in other words, you're putting a lot of faith in the person presenting something that's, quote, valid and still good to go. Is there a database that's statewide that you can go look up someone's license?
Unfortunately not, no.
Would you be in support of us asking the state to look at that and possibly create one?
Good luck, yes.
Okay.
Good luck.
I already thought about, I wonder if OpenGov probably already has some sort of record keeping that you could utilize. As to whether it's 100% used statewide, no, but it would be significant.
It would
It's
be.
just, it's tough because, again, last year, I think I licensed licensed and inspected maybe 40 trucks. And that's just a tiny snippet of what's out there. And they change ownership. They get in accidents, the engines blow, they get new trucks. They have, sometimes they end up getting, the cannoli truck that I just inspected, he's going to be adding another one to his business. So it's just, we've even asked like for the residential kitchens, because that's another whole issue for another day. There's not even one for that, because we have to, if you have a residential kitchen that comes in, for example, from another town to do a temporary event in Littleton, we request a whole bunch of paperwork for that as well. But it would be nice to know statewide, like, where are these places? What are they selling? But nothing yet.
And then the final thing is, do towns come and get licenses for like athletic events and like the snack shacks and things like that? Is that
Yes.
something?
Yes.
Okay.
Littleton does. Littleton's very good about that. Yeah.
No, it was more of a question. I'm not pointing fingers.
So
Oh,
that is something I think for liability purposes, we have started to see a big increase in that. A lot of the town administrators and town managers, I don't know if it's through their office, through the selectmen, or what's happening, but we are seeing a lot more. And the temporary events townwide, even for the sports shacks and stuff like that. And we don't charge them for that. It's as a town entity, their permits are all free. So we tell them it's super easy. We even let them email all the documentation to us. So I think because it's easy too, it's we are seeing definite increases in that.
Good. All right. That's it. Those are my go backs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Matt Wason, did you have anything else, or did you get it, your questions?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
My only comment, Bridget, is thank you so much for all
Sure.
the work you do, herding all those cats and keeping them safe. For the
Yeah, no
community.
problem.
I think that, you know, having that list somewhere online that the public can access will make things a lot safer. And maybe if we can help you to promote that list in Littleton, you'll see less, you know, rogue vehicles and more of the ones that are already permitted at different events, both publicly and private. So
Yeah,
let
sure.
us know, let us know when that's up there, and we'll help to get it out.
Right.
People will certainly want to be having gatherings, and isn't a food truck at your gathering a great idea? You know?
Yeah, and again, I always tell the boards, you have full access, so just send an email if you have any questions or concerns about events coming up.
Great.
Okay,
Well, thank you very much for your
Right.
time.
have a good day
All right, we'll
or
talk to you.
good night.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Thanks, Bridget.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too. So we'll move on to our administrative matters. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to read through the meeting minutes of June 8th that were sent over.
Yes, I did.
Did anyone have any edits, comments, changes that needed to be addressed?
No.
Dan Kane?
Couple places, if just go through and replace Dane with Dan.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple spots, so I think those are the only ones that I noticed.
Sorry about that.
Kevin
It
Davis?
happens all the time. My middle initial is E, so Dane is not unusual, as is Danielle. It just
Kevin-
My only comment was the one that Dan had. The rest of it looks fine.
Gino, did you have any questions, comments?
No, I read it, but I didn't notice any problem. But anyway, it's funny though. Daniel. Tell him to change his name to Danielo.
No comments.
No comments from Matt. Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Well, we have to approve the minutes first, you know.
Oh, okay. Make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 8th. Am I correct?
June 8th.
June 8th. Okay.
Second.
Roll call vote. Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis, yes, as amended.
Gino Fratelloni,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, yes.
Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. Didn't have any correspondence beyond the new member of the Littleton Volunteer Corps, Raina Sturts. Were there any board member updates, comments for discussion? Yes, Kevin Davis.
I got my first correspondence from a person in town. It was in reference to creating a home burial plot. I reached out to Jim, got whatever the regulations are, and I copied you on that. And I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I thought it was kind of interesting. And it turns out that for all of us here, that the Board of Health actually has an approval process in this whole thing that has to go through. And also that it's probably going to you have to make sure with the EPA that there's no water running through the cemetery site as well. Which
I was going to say, did you see what the groundwater offset to a casket is?
No, I did not. But I was gonna have to take a look see because that's kind of an interesting dilemma. Heavy metals and all.
Hmm.
Oh, So yeah, no, that I think that's there. I'm looking forward to the conversation with the town member going forward and just kind of see what happens. But I wanted to let the board know that I actually got something.
Matt Wace, anything?
Yes, the room count and sizing discussion, perhaps make it an agenda item, because I think it's hard at this point of a meeting to try to have really fruitful conversation. But I think we as a board should come up with some, I hate to say the word rules, but something that is much clearer to guide us in determining some of these counts, not only for us, but as the board moves with new members. Just something that kind of spells out, here's the pattern that we typically use over and over again. You threw out the 300 square foot idea that had been previously used, exactly like one of those rooms in the example today was, I think, 460 square feet. So you start to say, well, you know, is it a hard 300? I hope not. I would hate to have somebody come in and be like, well, it's 304. And we go, too bad, that's 2 rooms. But some sort of guidance to help us out. I think there's also the consideration of perhaps right now the rules, like, I don't think would say anything, but if we look at a basement that doesn't have exterior access, could we be more lenient? Should we be more lenient? Those kinds of ideas. So I think we should have some conversation. So maybe it's a matter of coming up with ideas or thoughts we might have in advance that we could circulate so that we have a little more focused conversation or discussion. That one today like starts to put me on the more concerned side because it does have exterior access from the basement and a bathroom in the basement. So those are the things you start to look at and say, not the current owners, but as a future owner going to look at that as a 4-bedroom house with an almost in-law suite downstairs. So what could we draft up as a guidance document, perhaps, is what I would call it.
Yeah, I'll put some information on the next agenda, but I'll circulate it around the board so everybody can process that. And it might stimulate some other ideas, some other creative ways we can go about eliminating some of the gray area, which is, you know, what takes up most of our time here. So,
yeah. And then unrelated to that, I'm going to end up, I'll email Bridget about it, but we got that report of the food inspections and the restaurants in town. And there are some holes in the report. And there are some handwritten comments that don't appear to correlate to anything in the report. So I feel like there's some data missing, I believe, but I also am going to ask for clarification because there are different statuses. In case you haven't read it, there are different statuses for an inspection, and some say no, many say no follow-up, but every now and then it says follow-up, but then there is no information about the follow-up. So kind of echoing what I said earlier, I think we as a board need to have much better insight into how this is going in our community so that we can understand if our needs are being met or if there's some action we need to take. So I will follow up with clarification of that and let you guys know what comes back.
thank you. Dan Kane, did you have anything?
I don't think I have anything tonight.
Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks so much for volunteering your time to be on the Board of Health. I think it'll be a very productive year, and we'll get an agenda lined up for our next meeting. Will everyone be around during that February vacation week? I was just looking at the calendar. I didn't know if we wanted to take a look at maybe shifting that February meeting that falls on the 22nd. I don't know if anybody felt we might want to shift that to the 15th and do like a February 1st and the 15th, or if it's a non-issue for people.
School vacation, right?
Is 15th town meeting?
Oh, that's a Wednesday. I don't know.
I have 15, 16 blocked off on my calendar as town meeting, but that does not mean it really is town meeting.
We can also revisit this at our meeting on the 25th to schedule it. We can see how how busy we are and if we need to add.
We could also go possibly to the week after, right?
We could do the week after too. So I just want to put it on people's radar. I don't know if there are conflicts or not, but I do have a conflict. I won't be here. So
Yeah, you and me both. I'm looking right now, Dan, online to see if I can find it.
So it looks like the finance committee has a meeting scheduled in the gymnasium at the middle school on the 15th, which would mean that's town meeting. But it just hasn't been posted otherwise, but the finance committee has posted their posted meeting on the 15th and 16th at the middle school gym. So
there's actually, it says special town meeting, Littleton Middle School, blah, 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 on the 15th.
15th.
Okay.
And then I'm looking at the 16th now. You're right. I only see the finance committee meeting, which means they booked
it.
So
They
that way
booked it as overflow just in case.
yeah. So that's what's going on there.
I'm just gonna give one last update and then we can adjourn. The public health coordinator position that we had put out there and advertised and interviewed for, it seems like we're having a lot of trouble finding the right fit with the current structure that's in place. The town is looking to save money. There was a meeting, FinCom meeting last night, where there was discussion about eliminating the funds that were appropriated for that position. There have been conversations. I spoke with Anthony about what we can do to get some support on the public health coordinator front. And there's a meeting, FinCom meeting on January 24th, a FinCom meeting, and I believe it's also a select board meeting that I'll be attending and requesting funds for a position to help us both administratively and coordination wise in doing better on the public health front and doing better for our residents. It'll be a very short presentation. I don't know. We probably won't want to have more than 2 board members speak. If any of you are available, if you'd like to have a conversation about it, we can briefly have that now, or sort of do it one-on-one as that meeting approaches. But I'm of the mindset that we've done a lot of good work on this board, even given all the issues we've dealt with throughout the COVID pandemic. And I feel like there's some sort of bottleneck in execution and also just planning, keeping things on the radar. And we need a quarterback, and we need a goalie. We need that person that can, take what comes of these meetings and sort of implement things that, take a lot of time, take a lot of effort and energy. And we just, we need to have that in place. If this board is going to want to take all the work that we do at these meetings and actually put it into play. For example, trash hauler regulations. We're so behind the 8 ball on that. And there's just so many things that we need help with. And I'm going to make that perfectly clear at the FinCom meeting on Jan 24. So if any of you would like to attend or add a comment for that meeting, I'm happy to read it and vocalize it for you. And after that, just a motion to adjourn if there are no comments or questions.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote, Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis, yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Yes.
Dan Kane,
Dan Kane, thank you, and yes.
Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Dave. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.